Theme this month is purpose. The topic today is continuous realignment. Continuous realignment. I've noticed that so many of us have a tendency to get upset with ourselves and to judge ourselves for being off. And we make these goals, and we make the goal to always be on, and then get upset with ourselves when we're not. But that's not the way that the universe works. I think that everything that we ever need to know, we'll find out from nature. And how does nature work? In nature, it's not that everything is always on point. Nature is always self-correcting. It keeps coming back. It keeps readjusting. It keeps realigning itself. When there's an imbalance, it comes back. If there's been some sort of interference, there's something that brings it back. And I think that if we looked at our lives more like that, in a holistic, natural sense, of not how do I create a life where I'm just always on and never faltering, but how can I live with life with a little bit more aikido? How can I live with a little less rigidity, a little less stuckness, and learn to flow and to move and to give with the ebbs and tides of life so that I am constantly readjusting? The question is not so much how many times do we get off, but is our one, capacity, and two, willingness to be off decreasing. It's not that I get off, but do I notice it quicker? Is my tolerance for being off getting shorter and shorter? And I don't mean just an impatience, but a vision that sees that it can be something other than this. Is my willingness to correct happening sooner? That's where the peace and the joy comes. That's where you find yourself being on purpose. Is when you catch that you're off quickly. And what do you do at that moment? When you catch that you're off, do we make a big deal about being off? Because that just gets us more off. So you say something that's off. What did it take you? 5 seconds to say it. Okay? But then you'd spend the next 2 hours complaining about it and worrying about it. 2 days later, you're still worrying about the off that you were for 5 seconds. 2 months later, 20 years later, how many times have we replayed those 5 seconds? Okay. So, part of the continuous realignment is our willingness to forgive. Ooh. Breathe. You know, I don't know why that word forgive just sends shockwaves. I think there's such misunderstanding about what the word really means. You know, the word in our sort of secular vernacular, we think of forgiving as condoning as colluding, as letting people off the hook, or people getting away with stuff, or that's not what it is. Forgiveness is release. Forgiveness is releasing you from having to live under the influence of the ongoing karmic effects. I like the way that Ernest Holmes puts it, the founder of religious science. He says, we are not punished for our mistakes, we are punished by them. We're not punished for them. There's not like somebody up there keeping a ledger and, that we're punished by them. That for every action, there's a reaction. That for every action, there's a consequence. Cone with sequence. A consequence. There is a sequence that comes with that. That's just the way that it is. Okay? But we get to determine what we make out of that. We get to determine whether this consequence is evidence of how bad we are, is evidence of how much I need to beat myself up, or we can say, this thing happened, yes, it sort of has my name on it, but how can I turn this around? I'm thinking of a story I know I've told on different times. When I was first a religious science practitioner, this was decades ago, one of my clients was a guy, and I remember we were in my house, so we were having a workshop, and he was explaining when he read the Science of Mind textbook. He read it in jail. He said that he had collected, I think it was 3 DUIs that he had never taken care of, and he had to do 30 days in county jail in Los Angeles. Now, between the DUIs and jail, he had dried out. He wasn't drinking anymore. And he said, they thought that they were punishing a drunkard. He said, that guy died. Now, I knew that this 30 days basically had my name on it, assuming responsibility. I had done this, I had done that, but what am I going to make of these 30 days? Are you with me now? Okay, there's a consequence that's here. I got to go to jail, and there's no way out of this. But what is going to jail going to tell me? Am I going to go to jail a failure? Am I going to go to jail beating myself up for all the mistakes and everything that I did? Or am I going to use jail as an opportunity to realign? Am I going to use jail as an opportunity to readjust, to self-correct? So he went into jail with the Science of Mind textbook and just read it from cover to cover in jail. There have been a number of times where I have been so upset and frustrated in the prison work, particularly with lockdown and the amount of time that people do on lockdown and how unfair the lockdown seems to be because people get locked down that don't even have anything to do with it. And sometimes this stuff goes on for months. And I remember some of the conversations that I had with some of the inmates, and they gave me a whole nother spin. And they said, Reverend, sometimes it's a vacation. I get to do my writing. I get to do this or that. I don't have to be out there in the yard with all them crazies. I don't have to work. And I was like, wow. Are you with me? That even in that moment, and sometimes when I'm talking to them, at different events and whatnot, I say, the state has given you chronos, time, just undifferentiated markers, like 1 o'clock, 2, that don't have any significant meaning. But there's another word for time in Greek called kairos, which means an opportune season. There's a rightness for something. I said, the state has given you chronos, turn this into kairos. Use this as a time and a moment to readjust and to realign. The universe is always doing that. If we were to start in a gymnastics class, and let's say we're training on the high beam, I'll bet you're going to spend a lot of time falling. The balance beam is what I'm trying to say, the balance beam. I'll bet initially you're going to spend the majority of your time falling off, right? Okay. But what are we going to pay attention to as the marker? Are we going to pay attention to the amount of time we're falling off? Are we going to pay attention to the amount of time that we can stay on? Maybe it's just 3 seconds. Okay, but that's 3 seconds versus nothing. Maybe in a week or two, you can do it 5 minutes. So what do we pay attention to? The 2 hours we spent falling off? Or the fact that now we can do it 5 minutes? Okay. And the next week, 10 minutes. And the next week, 15 minutes. Are you with me? What is the focus of the attention? There is a constant realignment. There's not a chiropractic adjustment to end all chiropractic adjustments. There isn't. Okay? You get adjusted, you get aligned, right? And then life happens. Gravity pulls, stressors, strains, muscles, whatever. You come back. Yes? Everything is always coming back. When we get off purpose, our challenge is to keep coming back. Too often when we get off, we start to do things that take us further off. We have conversations about how bad it was, and then we get people to co-sign. And then we get into doubt, or we get into fear. And then we start looking for more and more evidence of how it can possibly go off again. Instead of taking a look at whatever it is that's happened, blessing it. Because even in the off, trust me, there's a lesson there. Even if the lesson is no more, I remember them saying, Edison, asking him, 1,000 experiments didn't work. Like, didn't he get discouraged? He says, no, I found 1,000 things that didn't work. We don't have to do that again. That one's done. That was done. This continuous realignment. This weekend we're celebrating Martin Luther King's birthday. Normally, I play a clip of his. I just didn't get it together this time, to be honest with you, but I'm going to try to do it for next week. And we tend to want to project onto him this kind of superhero, and forgetting that in the day that wasn't the case. In the day he was a very controversial figure. And in the day he did not have all that support that people are giving him now. He was a Baptist minister, but he's basically thrown out of the Baptist church, which is part of the reason why he started the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You know, contrary to popular belief, it was not the black church that was behind the civil rights movement, or that started the civil rights movement, or that followed it through. That's not correct. There were some specific churches and some very young, dynamic leaders that worked with him, but it wasn't by their denomination. It was by their individual choice. The civil rights movement was won by an interfaith, multicultural coalition. That's what won the civil rights movement. And you're going to find that to be the case every time there's any success in a movement. Nelson Mandela just died, and we've taken a look at his life. He didn't make it on his own. It happened because there was a coalition. Now, part of the reason why I'm being very specific about this is that corrective, that readjusting happens not only in our own lives, but the readjusting happens on the collective level as well. If we as a society are going to get on purpose, we have to be in continuous realignment as well. But the realignment, just as in your personal life, it's going to happen in the collective level. It's going to require some forgiveness. Okay? It's going to require some not being stuck about everything that happened, getting off the blame and shame game. And here's the paradox of it all. The answer is in the problem. The answer is in the problem. And when the readjusting comes, when the correction comes, quite often it is somehow or another going to involve some of the people, places, and things that you once had identified as the problem. So whether you use the word oppressed in a literal sense, at a collective level, or whether you're thinking about it in your own individual lives, that part that's been oppressed, that part that's been repressed, or whatever that is, it's going to take the same individuals or the same things that were involved in that to uplift it. So we say, for example, in recovery, your best thinking got you here. Yes? Okay. So we know that there's a way that when we're in addictive behavior, we get into denial and tell our stories, and there are these ways that our mind can run off with us, right? Well, newsflash, part of recovery is going to require you using that same mind. That same mind that got you in it is going to be the mind that helps you get out of it. But if we just stayed in judgment about how bad my mind has been getting me in this, then I can't use that power of that mind to get out of it. Are you with me? You know, we get into our stuff, the environmentalists and whatnot, like corporations are bad, Newsflash, corporations got us into some of this, and guess who's going to get us out? Government has gotten us into certain things, guess who's going to get us out? Religious groups got us into stuff. The same Christianity that got us into slavery is the same Christianity that helped us get out. Because there's a readjustment. Are you seeing it? There's a readjustment. So if we're going to stay on purpose, the blame and shame game isn't going to do anything but keep us further off purpose. Is there a willingness in your heart to embrace those parts of you that you condemn? Is there a willingness in your heart to embrace those parts of society or whatnot that you condemn? Is there a part of you that's willing to say that if I really believe in this oneness thing, I've got to believe in this oneness thing? It can't be just oneness for us, the good and the progressive. You know, it can't be oneness just us, the sober, or just us, the vegans, or just us, the this, or just, and all those bad people out there. That's not the way this works. With the continuous realignment, with the continuous readjustment, it's going to mean shifting the relationship. See, forgiveness shifts your relationship to the people, places, and things. It doesn't condone what happens, but it stops you from being a victim. The forgiveness stops you from making a God out of what's happened, because we make a God out of anything that we let define us or determine our possibility consciousness. So forgiveness is your ticket to freedom. Forgiveness is your ticket to getting your power back. See? So there's this realignment and readjustment with what's happened, which lets me stand in my power. And it shifts the relationship. King says, I don't want to kill you. To white people, I don't want to kill white people. I want to live next door to you. I want our kids to go to school together. I don't want to kill you. Can you feel that? What do you really want to do? Think about that now. I mean, really seriously. Think about those people, places, and things in your life that you've considered to be like your oppressors, those things that have victimized you. Do you want to kill them? Or do you want to reconcile? Think about it. I mean, really. Do you really want to reconcile with your ex? Do you really want to reconcile with that employer? Maybe you're not even there anymore. Do you really want to reconcile with those family members? Do you really want to reconcile with that other political party? Do you really want to reconcile with those religious folk that, you know, they think you're wrong, you think they're wrong, and everybody just in the wrong game? Do you really? Because you can. We can. We just have to want to. We just have to want to. And when we want to, that's when we'll see the change. That's when you'll feel it in your heart. That's when you'll feel it in your life. And I'm going to end on this. Just remember, we cannot do anything in the collective that we can't do in the individual. So we can't expect the world peace. We can't expect the realignment. We can't expect the cleaning up of the environment and the ecology if we can't clean up our own lives. If we're still warring and we can't forgive, how can we expect wars that have gone on for centuries to stop? When we can't stop the wars that have gone on for generations in our own families. Don't look sad. This is good news. This is good news. You have the power. We're not stuck. We have the power to constantly readjust and get back on purpose. I think that's exciting. I think that's good news. That's what I think. Do you want it? Do you really want it? Do you really want your life to be on purpose? Do you really want the world to get on purpose so that it is spiritually fulfilling, environmentally sustainable, and social just? Get it back on purpose, yes? Will it begin with us? Yes. Take a deep breath.